All right. Well, Chris, I do appreciate you hopping in here to hang out with me for a couple minutes and talk and give some advice to the younger you and the other people starting doing what you're doing. And yeah, man, this is gonna be fun. I have a lot of fun having these conversations. It's good to have someone such as yourself on here. But yeah, I mean, before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of things, tell everybody about yourself, how long you've been doing it, what you're doing, and then we'll kind of have some fun.
And thanks for having me, Brian. Appreciate it. So my name is Chris Chavez. I've got Chavez Custom Knives. I make, well, I've got designs that I've designed and made, and I primarily finish those out. And then I do custom orders as well, pretty bizarre things. But I want everything to be personalized as much as I can to the owner of the knife. So when I first started out, it was more about just trying to get things done and trying to figure out the process. And now that I've got somewhat of an idea of what that looks like, now it's more fine tuning the details of the things that the client or the customer, the end user may not really think about, but it impacts their decision on whether they carry or not. And so I am an everyday EDC knife maker.
Not bad, man. They're beautiful. We'll put the link to the site in the show notes. But I was playing around earlier. Looking at your information here. I mean, you've been doing it for a little while. You didn't just start this. So, like, how long you been doing? It? And if do you have any idea how many knives you've sent out the door?
Golly, it's been a few hundred or more, and I didn't prep for that question.
No, I know. I like to kind of that just fell into my head.
I know 2025 was one of my biggest years. This year's already shaping up and pacing to be bigger than last year. 2019 is when I started, and then COVID hit, and then there was like a lot more time to do it, and a lot more people interested in more tactical EDC carries. People were investing more into those things. So it was a really great time to get started in it. And I grew up in New Mexico, so we did a lot of hunting over there. And I've always noticed it was like something that we never talked about, but it was something that I thought was very interesting when we went hunting for like elk in New Mexico or something. I always noticed, or mule deer, like how many knives we brought and then the one we would use. And I always looked at, you saw that one knife sitting there that no one touched, never got used. It was like a backup to a backup. And the one that they did use, it was smaller and easier to carry. And I don't know, I always paid attention to that. And I never really acted on that until about 2019, much, much later, way later. And yeah, a friend of mine was like, hey, man, he was wanting to kind of compete with some kind of the razor blade knives that you've seen out there that you can swap out the blades. He was like, "You think you could do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I can try." And then I ended up making some kind of butter knife that looked horrible. So I was like, "No, this is probably not for me." But prior to that, me and my brother, we were involved in a project we worked on together as a multi-tool for cleaning small game. We called it the Sportsman's Field Tool, and it had like shears, little rake hook to clean out guts out of small game and fish. Yeah, I had a flay knife and had all the little tools that you would need. It was a stainless steel tool. We were trying to get that made here in the United States, and we struggled with that. We went through a learning curve to try to figure out how to get that made locally, and we found somebody overseas. Weren't real happy with that, but it never took off. You've got to know people in the big stores to kind of get those things taken off. So we went to a show or two and tried to present them out there like that, and we sold some, and people were excited about it. But that was prior to 2019, but me making knives under my name like I am now started then in 2019.
Okay, fair enough. And honestly, like you may have just touched on it a little bit there. Maybe there's something else, but what is one obstacle that you have come across, and like how did you get past? I know as business owners, you and I probably both have 5 or 6 obstacles in front of us for today. But
Mhm.
let's go back a day or two or a couple of months and talk about an obstacle that you've already overcame. What is it, and like how did you get past it?
Yeah, so when you get into this making knives, like you want to make them for everybody. So you're throwing out designs left and right. And that obstacle was kind of unique because I was making the designs to please other people and I hated it. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't even enjoy making this anymore because no one's buying it. So that obstacle, finding your customer and finding where your passion lines up with that. And so what I do now is I'll do these batch drops, and a lot of people are doing that right now, and it's really interesting. Now, I like to
Yeah.
do a whole bunch if I'm going to an event and I'll make a large amount. We'll try to go 40 or 50 knives or more and have them ready for an event where people are going to be likely to buy this item. But that's the biggest obstacle I would say is just finding your customer and then finding your passion within it, so you don't hate it. I ran into this guy the other day at this other business I was over at, and he opened a pizza store. This is unrelated. But he opened a pizza store, and then he sold it because he hated it. The idea of it after he started it, and when he said that a while back, I was like, that resonated with me so well, and I knew that we were going to have this conversation today. I was like, man, that's exactly the bottleneck and process or problem that I think a lot of business owners have is just, do you like making it? Are you passionate about making it? Or are you just doing it because the money's coming in and like
Oh,
I have to
sure.
do this now?
Yeah,
So I found that out.
yeah, I'm sure a lot of people get into business for there's different sets of people who get into business. Some people do have a burning passion and they just drive forward. That's awesome. But then there's a lot of us who are like, I got bills to pay and I need to do something. I don't want to work for other people,
Right.
right? So I mean, I definitely fall into that second group when we started our stuff. Oh, there we go. I told you there's a dog coming at some point. When I started, it was the same sort of thing. Like, got to pay the bills. We got to do this. Don't want to work for other people. But then taking a page out of the book that you just talked about there, niching down, finding your audience. We got sick of marketing supplements and skincare. We're like, I like shooting. I like knives. Let's go that direction. And it just, I'm not sure about you when you had this thought in your mind. It's scary to consider niching down because you think you're gonna kind of be shooting yourself in the foot. Like, oh yeah, if we're gonna like find out like this is gonna be our audience, then like this 1% of the population turns into like thinking, well, 99% of the people aren't gonna see my stuff or not, they're not gonna like it. Did that thought process ever go through your head?
Yeah, I did. So that was pretty much 2024 going into 2025. That's exactly what I'm going through there. Another thing that helped with that, well, how I got out of that was making them for me. And I know that sounds weird, but what would I like? Because I use these things. I use a knife every day for certain everyday tasks. Who knows when I'm opening up a box, cutting a zip tie, a tag, or out in the field if life gets more adventurous, I guess you can say. And so,
Yeah.
like, what would I want to carry? Because if I get stuck with this, then because I know what that's like. I was stuck with all those tools that got made in China, and I didn't want to be in that spot again where like no one had exposure to them and no one could buy them. And my reach and my audience is very small. Like I have a very small reach on Facebook and Instagram, and so that's fine. I mean, it'll grow over time, but I didn't want to be stuck like that with all that inventory. I was giving them away prior to making knives. I was just like, here, take it, and tell your friends, and then when I got into knife making, I was just kind of making anything and everything that would come my way, and then the orders would come in, and my books were full. But I was like, man, I don't feel like making that one. Or I did make it, and then I felt a lot better afterwards. I was like, hey, you know what? That was kind of fun, and that's when I started learning how. That's how I started niching down was from learning about the orders that I was getting that were custom orders. I started getting more niche and more precise on exactly knowing what I wanted to do. Things started turning around and getting more exciting at the end of 2024. And
Makes sense. No, no, you just hit on something super important there. I wanted to try to unpack. So you were getting either direct feedback from customers or seeing trends in what you're sending out, and you use that to iterate off of for future products.
yeah, that's exactly it. So I saw a friend of mine that's here locally. He does Damascus, and he's very well. Like he's got a good reputation in the knife community, and he showed me some micarta fire hose scales, and I was like, he said, "Hey, you can have these. I made them. I don't want to do that ever again. I'm tired of it. I don't want to ever touch that again." And I was
Yeah.
like, dude, these are freaking awesome. You made this. So I went down this whole rabbit hole trying to figure out how do you do it? How do you make it food safe? How do you make them right? How do you make them where they're safe to use? What's the benefits? What's the downfalls? Like there's all the things that come with micarta that I was kind of concerned about. Got rid of all those by getting answers from people that are experts in that. And although he wasn't interested, I was very interested in it. And then instead of just being like one color kind of thing, then I just started exploring with different types of materials like canvas and burlap and fire hose and mixing them and getting the colors. And I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but that's something that is something that led to where I'm at.
That's good, man. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like if you are trying to niche down and you're not, you need to figure like if you're currently selling a product or service and you can get some feedback, whether it's, I'm a big nerd, right? So on the marketing side, I look at data, look at spreadsheets to find trends. But on the other side of the screen, some people can have face-to-face conversations with their customers and ask them what they need and want and like, and then they can start kind of narrowing it in. That's a less scary way to niche down than instead of just saying like, we're going to do this now. So, and I think that if anyone else in the business world, they're considering that topic of finding your audience, narrowing your audience, niching down however you want to slice it, that's probably the safer way to do it. So I think as you know, if people are listening to this and watching this, that's the way to do it. So if here's the last question. I always like to ask this. It's a lot of fun to kind of hear where people's heads are at. So if you go back in time to when you were either considering making that first blade or making that, what's one piece of life or business advice that you would give to the younger Chris, and kind of answer why?
Yeah, the advice I'd give is that your hands will teach you more than your eyes will when you're making. So don't be afraid to get out there and make mistakes with your hands, because that's the only way. You get analysis paralysis and trying to figure out the perfect plan, and then you get out there or get in the shop and it doesn't work out the way you think because of the plan doesn't match with the skills that you don't have yet in your hands. And so get out there and start working with your hands and start moving some stuff. Once you start making with your hand, you'll start seeing what you're looking for. And then you'll start comparing and you'll start noticing all of the little small details. And the other thing too, that is the details that you see that are flaws are not seen by the customer at the end of the day. And they don't know about that process because your hands are in it. And that was one reason why I held on to so many, is because of that. So I would just say your hands are your teacher. I know your eyes will guide you, but use your hands and get out there, because that's one thing that really changed the game for me. I was using jigs to try to bevel, and once I started freehand grinding, the game changed for me as far as the outcome of what my product.
Hands are your teachers. That's the mic drop moment right here.
Boom.
And it makes sense too, man. I mean, shit. I mean, in my former life as a mechanical engineer, I sat at the desk and I did CAD work, and I would always get calls in the field from the guys doing the installs, kind of getting pissed off at why I was doing something. Oh, you gotta get down here and do this with your hands. Like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Everything can look good when you're looking at life and plans under a petri dish, but until you try to get in there and see, like you said, if you don't have the skills to do the thing with your hands, all the best plans they don't mean shit. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You know what? And then to add on to that, blacksmithing and bladesmithing and all of that combined, like you've got some people that are saying, well, if you don't do it this way, then you're ruining the tradition of knives. But even if the old timers back then were to come into today, they would probably evolve their tools into the things that we have today to make it easier on themselves. That's just what they had back then. So I know people try to keep the tradition of making knives a certain way, but with the new technology that we have today, like I respect everyone that's using any kind of machines. I don't have a CNC machine, but I respect those that are making it and getting it done. And that came from working with their hands and that knowledge, and like what you were saying with CAD, like you've got that skill and that knowledge and you adapted and applied it into your thing. So with me with project management, I just try to increase my processes. Anytime I find a smoother way of doing something, then I get to where my next bottleneck is. What is that going to be? All right, found it. All right, let's start dialing in, trying to fix that to make it more efficient. Not to make it faster and get a knife out in 15 minutes, but get a knife through the process a little smoother so that way I can get more out and then get more available to people out there.
yeah, yeah. If you look at any process, any system, any end output from top to bottom, front to back, however you want to see it, like there's always going to be little things you can tweak to improve and optimize. And it doesn't mean it has to affect the end piece. At the end of the day, even on our side, same thing. Like something comes in, and I'm always looking at like where can we reduce traffic, reduce friction, do all these little things, and that applies everywhere. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the adoption of AI in the last year, year and a half at
Yeah.
this point. It was kind of like, hey, like you either have to learn it or find a way around it, and now everyone's just running up against saying, okay, how can we use this? It's like the same thing when the internet came out. Everyone's it's a fad, it's not going to work. Well, guess what? We're on the internet right now, all day.
Yeah, and I think that might be a whole other conversation, but that's the customers, trying to find your customers and how to communicate to your customers and how to present to your customers. Just because you're making in your shop, you're in a little dungeon island all by yourself. At
Yeah,
that
you're in a
point, you
bubble.
need to figure out how to reach out to them, and that's a whole other conversation. But
Oh, for sure.
yeah, I think the adoption of the technology is something that we shouldn't be afraid of. We should embrace it and try to figure out how to work with it. So I don't know, teach an old dog new tricks.
That's awesome, man. Well, Chris, this has been super helpful. I'm sure other, beginner bladesmiths that are getting into this, that they're going to pick up a thing or two, and I really do appreciate your time, man.
I appreciate you, man. Keep pushing out the great content. We'll keep watching, man. I appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks.
Click. Sweet, man. That has been fun. I knew I was going to get visited by at least one dog. They both came to say hi. But no, man.
Right on, man.
These are fun, man. Appreciate your time.